Hi, today I'm talking to Karan, and I'll give you a quick chance to introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Karan. I'm a UBC engineering student. I'm in my third year studying mechanical and currently working at a Zoom engineering, doing a co-op term there.
Cool. So, what would you say an average day looks like working at Zoom Engineering for you then?
Right. So we are what do you call them? Oh, so we do HVAC, electrical, and interior design, and I'm on the HVAC team. So do you want to know my duties or what the company as a whole does?
I'm really interested in what you do.
Okay, so I'm a mechanical designer. So my job is to make mechanical plans for commercial and residential buildings. Um, so yeah, whenever like a building needs to be made, they need mechanical plans, and those need to run by the city. We're the ones who create those plans and then give those to our clients.
And what does the process look like? How do you know how to create these plans? Are you working in a team with a bunch of people? Or are you going through building codes? How are you doing that?
Right. So there's a bunch of different building codes that we have to work with. Each municipality has its own, like Vancouver has its own certain building code, which let's say we have a building going on in Abbotsford, we can't use the same code for them, right? So how we make these plans is like first we need to go through heat loss calculations to see how much heating or cooling would be needed within that space, right? And we also need to take in like different elements into consideration, like what is the space being used for? For example, is it like a gym, in which case you need more fresh air as per the building bylaws? um, compared to like something like an office space where people aren't running around, people aren't sweating as much, so you don't need that much ventilation in that situation, right? So yeah, we run our calculations according to these bylaws, and based on that, we then spec a unit, and then from there we go into the designing aspect. And for designing, that's mostly what I'm doing. I'm more of a designer, so we do a bit of calculations, and then it's up to me to like draft up the initial design on AutoCAD. And a lot of it is AutoCAD work.
Okay. What would you say then is one of the best things about your job that really motivates you in the morning?
Um, I would say the fact that I get to work on so many different like really cool projects, I guess. Like for example, I've worked on like a subway or like Anytime Fitness. So I can actually go to these sites after designing my plans and see my like designs come into fruition, which is really cool, really inspiring. It's like you feel like you're actually doing something, right? So I would say that's definitely the best part about my current job.
On the flip side, then, what is one of the more challenging things that your job demands of you?
Right. I guess honestly, it's not too difficult. The most challenging part about my job was just trying to grasp everything initially, because coming into this field, I did not know a single thing. So many abbreviations you need to know, like EA, OA, standing for like exhaust air, outside air, whatever. There's like hundreds of them, right? So it's like it's a lot to pick up initially. You need to figure out how to do all these different types of calculations. But once you do a couple projects, you already know how most of it goes. You know how to run these calculations already. You know how to make a pretty well like decent design. Once you have like those base skills, you can translate those pretty easily from project to project. So yeah, I think just like coming or like just initially understanding everything is probably the most challenging part.
Okay, kind of, you talked about like your knowledge then going into the job. That's a good transition to the schooling because you're still a student right now, you're on your co-op. And I'm
Right.
wondering how does the schooling do you feel like prepares you for the job? And what does an average day look like learning all this different mechanical engineering stuff?
Right. That's a good question. I'll be brutally honest here. None of my schooling really translates over into the field. What you do realize is you have a lot of like the base knowledge on how to do all these like complex calculations, but in the field, almost all of it is handled by software, like pre-written Excel code, things like that, right? So a lot of that doesn't really translate. I think what does translate is the ability to like quickly learn something and quickly apply something, because as an engineering student you have to do that very frequently. You get test after test after test. you need to quickly like understand all the material you're learning and then reproduce that on the test, right? So I feel like that skill really translates to the job as well. You do get a lot of information very quickly, so it is a lot to digest, but school prepares you to be able to digest that information and use it pretty well afterwards.
Yeah, it's one thing that's been mirrored by a lot of other people is that school gets you comfortable in technical situations and with technical problems, but everything
Yeah.
is learned on the job when it comes to your duties.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Um, what type of person do you think would succeed or excel or would get a lot of enjoyment out of a mechanical engineering career?
Right. I think you need to have a good problem solving capabilities coming into it. You need to find problem solving very enjoyable. I feel like I wouldn't recommend engineering to most people unless you have a genuine desire behind like solving world problems, not even world problem, like small problems, just like thinking outside of the box and like just being able to think critically, right? And just really like sit down with the problem and try to get through it. Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything you would suggest to students then who to figure out if they're that type of person? Because a lot of the times, I remember high school, you don't really know for sure what type of person you are. And talking to a lot of computer science engineers, they talk about like start coding, just make an Arduino project, do this, do that. Is there anything like that that you'd recommend to see your aptitude for mechanical engineering?
Right. I would highly recommend design teams, although you can't really do that before getting into university. Maybe there's like some sorts of clubs that you can look into. Honestly, why I chose engineering was because I was good at math and physics, and I was like, oh, might as well do engineering. That's what that is, right? So that's what got me into it. I wish I did have more of a knowledge of what engineering actually was before I delved into it, because I don't know, I'd always hear like if you're good at math and physics, engineering is the way to go, right? So yeah, I really don't know what resources are out there. I'm sure there are some. Me personally, I'm not knowledgeable of it, but I would definitely recommend doing a lot more research into what engineering actually is before you decide to go down that path, because it is brutal, and if you're not passionate about it, it will kick you out real quick.
Yeah, I really agree on that. And I think it's a really important point to note that just because you're good at math and physics doesn't mean you have to go into engineering. That definitely is.
100%.
And I feel like from my experience in high school, like you get sold a lot on what engineering is. In reality, a lot of engineering isn't that. Like you get sold stuff like, oh, you graduate six-figure job right away, easy peasy. At least that's what I heard. And that's not
Yeah,
really the
same.
reality.
Not at all.
And so it's important to really dig deep and not just listen to even what teachers say. Teachers are people
Yeah,
to do your own research and reach out to engineers and just ask
yeah,
them about their
I think
experiences.
that's the best advice right there. Reach out to actual engineers who are in the field doing that job that you're looking into, right? That's how you're gonna actually know what the field is and what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. And LinkedIn's a pretty easy place to do that as well. Like LinkedIn,
Yeah,
you can just message anybody. It's really
exactly.
straightforward. One last question for you before we wrap up. Is there
Mhm.
anything that surprised you when you first started your working position as a mechanical engineer that you weren't really expecting going into it?
Right. I feel like my co-op situation is a little different. I know a lot of co-ops, they get like simpler tasks. They don't get like the exact same like tasks that the other engineers working there do. But for me, working as Zoom engineering, they just tossed you right in there. So I had to like get with the program real quick, and that was a lot. Honestly, it was a pretty stressful like first month and a half just trying to like digest everything. Um, but yeah, for the most part, going into your first co-op or co-op anywhere really it shouldn't be too bad, because they'll understand that you're co-op, they'll understand you're still a student, you're still learning, you don't know everything yet. So they'll be more lenient with your tasks and like what you're given to do on the job, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like everyone knows that co-op students are still students at the end of the day. You're not a professional engineer yet. That takes what, 5 extra years after graduation, seven, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so Yeah, you won't be doing anything crazy off the gate for the most part, which on
Mhm.
my co-op, it was the same. I was walking around in fields, measuring how tall buildings were. So
It's pretty discouraging, yeah, because a lot of people have that similar experience. They go in and they're just like doing all the grunt work that the other engineers don't want to do, and they just hand it off to the co-op, right? Which is fair because like you can't expect the co-op student to be performing stuff that, the signing engineer is going to be liable for, right?
yeah, and also helps too. You do have to like build that base of like how stuff is done in the field. Now I know how stuff is measured and how stuff is laid out. So
Yeah,
it's it's building up to it. It takes a while to build up to actual like what you believe engineering is. As a
right.
student, you're not really going to get a full taste of it. And even as an EIT and engineering training, you still won't get the full taste of it. You aren't able to stamp stuff off. It really
Mhm.
is a long time, and that's why people should really do their research before committing to the path.
Yeah, no, I agree.